Koala-sized hair, trashy hot, strings attached, matchmaker, chemistry, senior guys and freshman girls, why it shouldn't happen, scare tactics, my cat, hairspray, the invisible flame, problem solved. A girl in my class had the most amazing hair. Her name was Danielle Jameson, and her hair was the size of a koala. A good-sized koala. A 30-pounder. Imagine a 30-pound koala clinging to a girl's scalp, and you'll get an idea of how big her hair was. The koala doesn't work as a visual, then it was the size of a huge Thanksgiving turkey. It was kind of that shape too, except for the claw in front. The claw was a fixture of adolescent and post-adolescent girls' hairstyles that reached its apex just before grunge hit, and overnight, suburban white kids' hair went oily, flat, and dingy. I remember one girl squealing to another girl when they first saw each other at prom. "Your hair's so big," she said. "Yours is even bigger," her friend squealed back. These were compliments. It would be a push to say that Danielle and I were friends, but we had a couple of classes together, and I talked to her when our teachers allowed us to talk. She was pretty in a trashy way. I'd thought about what it would be like to make out with her quite a lot by the second or third week of school, but I wasn't terribly interested in her, and she certainly wasn't interested in me. While Danielle wasn't exactly an illustration of what I would have chosen in a mate, her towering hairspray-spun confection, which extended nearly half a foot from her forehead in a waved-shaped coiffure, attracted a certain type of guy like gaudy flowers draw honeybees. Her face was sharply angled and a little cruel-looking, a look she accentuated by wearing blood-red lipstick and heavy dark eyeliner. Also, she was somewhat tall, had a tiny waist, a minimal behind, and huge breasts for a girl as thin as she was. She was only 14, just like me, but she looked like she longed for the bar scene of some cheesy Florida spring break town, Fort Myers or Daytona. Once he'd laid eyes on her, Jeff Slade believed he'd discovered the perfect woman. Since we'd watched Slade eat the radio in the back of the bus, there had been a change in his attitude toward all us bluebirds, and toward me in particular. Just as I'd hoped on that day, Bowden told us the story of how Slade stole a man's own shotgun one summer night out on Promise Road and beat him with it. Slade had gone from being a violent lunatic opposed to my existence to a violent lunatic advocating my existence. Overall, the change felt pretty good, but there were strings attached. The first was that I had to introduce Jeff Slade to Danielle Jameson. Complicating matters was the fact that I'd heard during our runs what Jeff Slade did with the girls he dated. While it was great listening material, and I'm sure, in the case of my brother, the pornographic basis of many minutes of solitary pleasure, I didn't want any part of any matchmaking Slade might have in mind. It seemed immoral to me to hook up anyone I might even consider a friend in the most remote way with Jeff Slade. He was, after all, legally an adult, being over 18 and all, and also, of course, he was crazy. "K1," said Slade as we jogged through the park one early morning in late September, the leaves just beginning to turn from green to yellow. "You gotta hook me up with that girl." "Which one?" I asked. Although I knew he meant Danielle. I'd been avoiding his hints for nearly a week when he cut to the chase, no longer able to contain himself. "You know, the one with those sweet-ass chest puppies that sit up and bark at me when you come out of chemistry. The slutty-looking one, with the hair." Even if statutory rape laws didn't exist, freshman girls shouldn't date senior guys. It's a bad situation, mostly because the two parties don't want the same things. At all. Freshman girls who date senior guys in many cases want prestige. They want other freshman girls to know they're dating a senior. The most important audience for girls, almost all the time, is other girls. Guys barely notice anything, which makes them a terrible audience. But it's not just that vain desire that causes some 14-year-old girls to go out with 18 and 19-year-old guys. At a deeper level, they want a real relationship and not just some childish pantomime of one. They want a real man, and freshman guys don't fit that category. Freshman guys are not real men, nowhere near. Anyone who'd rather light a fart or see if he can drink a gallon of milk without puking instead of taking a girl out to dinner is not yet a real man. So some girls skip past playtime and move up to seniors. Senior guys who choose to date freshman girls, I think we all know what they want. "Can you hook me up?" Slade asked on that morning's run. Of course, I couldn't say no. In chemistry class that day, our task was to melt something in a test tube. I can't remember what it was, but we had on the lab coats, the gloves, goggles. We looked like a bunch of mad scientists. Danielle was on one side of our table and I stood on the other. It was pretty mindless work, actually. The teacher had gone through exactly what would happen during each step of the experiment, explaining the point of each lab note we were to take. That didn't mean there wouldn't be any surprises in chemistry class that day. "Danielle," I said as I poured some yellowish granular substance into a test tube, "do you think you'd ever date a senior?" "Why?" said Danielle. She was a no-nonsense kind of woman when it came to dating. "Well," I said, pouring a couple of ounces of water into the test tube from a beaker, "I know this guy." "You know a guy?" she said dubiously. "Well," I said, "maybe." Danielle rolled her eyes. "What?" I asked. She sighed. "You're a runner. You're a freshman runner." "What's that got to do with anything?" "And you're a freshman too," I said. "Don't forget that." She pulled an end of her gum from her mouth and twirled it around her index finger. "No offense," she said, "but you guys, runners, aren't exactly my type. And I'm sure the only senior guys you know are runners." "Well," I said, suddenly a little offended, although she was right. I didn't know any seniors except the guys on our team, and 99% of cross-country runners would not have appealed to a girl like Danielle. "This guy isn't your typical cross-country runner," I pointed at the little flint scratcher we used to light the Bunsen burners. "Hand me that, please." She leaned across the table, which was a pretty good stretch, and it made me wish she wasn't wearing that bulky lab coat. It hid her best features. She handed me the lighter. "Who is it?" she asked, sounding a little bored. "His name's Jeff Slade. He's about—" But before I could continue describing him, Danielle's eyes lit up and she gasped. "Jeff Slade! Oh my God!" "You know of him?" I said. "Know of him?" she gushed. "I dream of him. He could be in a band." "Well, he knows of you too."